Hey everybody, Jim and Eric here with a Rewind Theater on Black Mass. This, Eric, is the story of Whitey Bulger, Boston gangster, played here by Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, who, if you're mostly familiar with crazy hats and crazy long wigs, this might be a whole new Johnny Depp for
Yeah,
people.
this is him going back to serious acting, and I couldn't be more excited. Whitey Bulger, notorious Boston gangster, ruled the city basically for 3 decades, ran the Irish mob, the Winter Hill Gang, and corrupted the FBI. He was an FBI informant, and these two guys here are his FBI handlers. But he basically had the upper hand of them, and literally got away with murder for years. And this movie will chronicle that story. Now let's go back, though. I want to go back and just point out a few of these things.
And I'd like to note that while I lived in Boston for a while, Jim is Boston, so
Yeah,
he's going to be
I'm
dominating
from
this
there, and
conversation.
I grew up when Whitey Bulger was running the show. So the guy I heard about in the news and just from people I knew was depicted as this sort of Robin Hood. You know, he would say to him to law enforcement guys, "You're the good guys, and I'm the bad good guy." So that's how we want it to be viewed. But in reality, he was a brutal killer and drug dealer, everything. Just a bunch of horrendous crap has come out about him. And the
And I guess
far
we should say spoilers for real life
Yes,
follow.
this is we are going to get into a lot of the details of the case, which have been covered to death in Boston, and frankly, they're sick of it. But for the rest of the world, this is probably the first time they're going to hear about this. On the far left is Rory Cochrane. You probably know him from Dazed and Confused, but he plays Stephen Flemmi, who was Whitey Bulger's partner, but really more of a right-hand man. Whitey really ran the show. Both Flemmi and Bulger were longtime FBI informants. Flemmi actually longer than Bulger. Johnny Depp, of course, is James Whitey Bulger. And in the middle, there's Joel Edgerton as FBI agent John Connolly.
Uncle Owen himself.
Yes, who actually grew up in South Boston, which is the neighborhood that Whitey primarily ran, even though in his later years he lived in my part of Boston, Quincy. John Connolly is now in prison for racketeering and murder, for tipping off Whitey Bulger, but his murder conviction was overturned last year, so he might be getting out. Yeah, and then on the far right is David Harbour. You probably know him from character stuff. I think he's on State of Affairs or whatever that is now.
He's one of those guys, super familiar.
He was the bad guy in Green Hornet, and he plays John Morris, who is another FBI agent, one of the two that Whitey Bulger corrupted, and basically he ends up turning on Bulger and leaking the fact that he was an informant to the Boston Globe, and we're going to see a Globe headline later on. And he was as guilty as John Connolly of a lot of horrendous things, letting this monster get away with murder. Here we see this is supposed to be Triple O's bar in Southie, which was this notorious gang hangout. It's now, I think, like I want to say it's like an Asian food restaurant.
I was going to ask if you went there to have a drink.
I have been there in the past.
There you go.
But in the middle too, that guy is W. Earl Brown as John Martirano. He was on Deadwood and Scream and all that, and John Martirano was a horrible, that's him again there. He was a hitman. He murdered dozens of people and essentially got a slap in the wrist from the government for turning state's evidence against Flemmi and
someone
Bulger.
he might have just killed.
Yep. Actually, I can tell you this is supposed to be, I believe, Tommy King, who was a former rival turned gang member of Bulger's. Now here we see this is the FBI informant, basically outing of Whitey Bulger as a rat. Now Whitey hated rats and killed guys that he suspected of being informants. The movie, I believe, is actually making this happen in like late 94, early 95.
We were trying to see the date on the paper.
Yeah,
it's missing one.
You can't really
they
make
don't want
it
you
out.
to see it.
The reason why that's important is this story was actually printed in 1988. But nobody believed Whitey was an informant because he was so kill crazy. Nobody thought even the FBI would stoop that low. So he stuck around another 6-7 years until he got indicted, and that's what made him go on the run for 16 years. And he ended up getting caught about couple of miles down the street from where I live now after all those
There
years.
you go. Intertwined, Jim. You're
See,
intertwined.
we are. Our fates are connected, unfortunately. He's got a bald cap on and blue contact
Very
lenses.
piercing eyes they gave him.
Well, that's actually true to life. I've actually known women who Whitey has hit on, and everyone said the same thing, but this guy had the scariest eyes. Here, let's point out this is the FBI office, and we see Adam Scott there from Parks and Rec.
Yep, Ben Wyatt is getting serious. I'd like to believe he's playing Ben Wyatt, but I'm guessing
He is
he's not.
He is playing Robert Fitzpatrick, he has since written a book kind of trying to play up being a whistleblower, but he actually, when he was put on the stand at Whitey's trial, a lot of his story, there were a lot of holes in the myth that he had built up about himself, that he had taken part in this case and that case, and it really wasn't the case. But anyways, he was, he's supposed to be the moral voice here in the FBI. This is actually the arrest of Stephen Flemmi in 1995. And then I just want to go back here because I think what they're listening to are tapes of a mafia induction ceremony or of the Angiulo brothers, who are the mafia guys. And it was that indictment against the mafia that kind of gave Whitey and Flemmi.
Hey, isn't that 21 Jump Street's Dakota Johnson?
I'd like to think of her as 50 Shades of Grey.
Whoa, she's in 50 Shades of Grey, too.
Don
That's
Johnson's
right.
daughter, and Melanie Griffith.
Yes.
Now, she plays Lindsay Sear, who is... Whitey had a number of women in his life, but there's only two that are going to be portrayed in this movie. She plays Lindsay Sear, who is the mother of Whitey's only child, who died when he was 6 years old from a very strange, rare condition. And, that basically Whitey was never quite the same. He was already a bad guy at that point, but like that he get really cold and really violent after that. And here we have Peter Sarsgaard, and he plays Brian Halloran, who was this low-level hood, but he was tied in with this it's too long to get into now, but this thing involving Miami and Oklahoma, and there was a trio of murders that this movie will depict. And this is supposed to be them in Miami, but they're actually in like Revere Beach, Boston.
I just want to say for all you listening, think about the thing you know the most about, and Jim knows way more about Whitey Bulger than that thing.
Now here, let's see that guy in the dark jacket on the right-hand side with the curly brown hair. That is actually Meth Damon himself, Breaking Bad's Todd, Jesse Plemons.
Friday Night Lights is Landry. I'll still love him as Landry. You loved him as Landry. You were scared of him as Todd.
You should also probably be scared of him here as Kevin Weeks, who is Whitey's enforcer, along with, there's a good shot at Stephen Flemmi. Not quite sure why they're beating up these guys, but it might be race-related, and I'll get to that in a minute. We're going to see. Not sure why this guy's getting whacked. There's Kevin Bacon now. Kevin Bacon is a composite character in this of a number of different FBI special agents in charge of the Boston office over all these years. So
and adding to everyone's games of 6 Degrees with another huge ensemble cast movie. Thank you, Kevin.
And there's Joel Edgerton. And it should be pointed out, from my understanding of Black Mass, this isn't really Whitey Bulger's movie. This is John Connolly's movie, and it's all about this guy who became a hotshot agent, and then his fall from grace and his corruption because of Whitey Bulger. And then, yeah, man, look at those eyes.
Yeah,
it's like a wolf.
You can see right through you.
And I love that he's using the story of the steak and the family recipe as a way of like, if you're going to lie about that one thing, or if you're going to write about that one thing.
It's Adam Scott rocking a great stash.
Now these guys are actually, I'm sure it's probably clear from the trailer, but they're antagonists. This guy, well, I'm not going to speculate on who he is, although I have an idea. Brian Halloran, played by Sarsgaard, is a doomed man, and you're going to see that later in the trailer. But his murder and the fact that
look at young Jennifer Garner.
Yeah. Now this is actually a St. Patrick's Day parade. This is supposed to be Southie, but I think they actually filmed in Lowell, Massachusetts, because Southie's way too gentrified now. But it should be pointed out that South Boston, and the fact that this trailer opens on a shot of Boston, a story like this, even though there have been a lot of FBI informant scandals elsewhere, this story is so particular to Boston, all the cultural factors that went into it. We're going to get a look here coming up in a minute in the city of Boston's history. And Whitey and his brother Billy, who we're going to see in a minute, are key parts of this. Now, why are these poor black kids on this bus getting attacked? Because it's 1975 and the school busing crisis in Boston, which is too long to get into, Google it, was tearing the city apart. Basically, white kids were being shipped to African American neighborhoods, and these kids were getting shipped into South Boston. And obviously, there was a lot of horrible kind of just racially motivated, but also just territorial stuff going on there in Boston.
And after that, we have the first shot of Tumblr going crazy.
That's right. Who's this guy?
That would be Khan, obviously. No,
yes,
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
The internet's love Benedict Cumberbatch.
He plays William Bulger, Billy Bulger, who is the most powerful politician in Boston. Rose to power through the state senate as his brother rose to power in the organized crime scene. And the question has always been, how much did he know about his brother's activities? Was he really clean, or was he covering for him? Or was it just the fact of like, hey, I have a killer for a brother? Was that enough to get people to do what he wanted?
Right.
I actually met Billy Bulger 20 years ago at a book signing, and Benedict Cumberbatch is about a foot too tall.
Right.
Now,
and he does it with a British accent. It's weird.
I know, it's strange. This is Julianne Nicholson, who you guys might know from Boardwalk Empire and I believe Deadwood, and she plays John Connolly's wife, and she's actually a Boston native. So let's just leave it at that.
And that's not John Connolly she's with.
That's right, and she looks kind of scared. I like that they work in Whitey's. He was known for his gold chain and his big cowboy belt. Belt buckle, and it should be an Alcatraz belt buckle that I think Connolly actually gave him, or one of the FBI agents gave him. It should strike you that at the opening of the trailer, he is having dinner with two FBI agents,
right,
threatening the life, ostensibly, of one of them.
Yeah.
To show you, like, the shoe really is on the other foot in this whole thing. Now, you'll see that window is already peppered with gunfire. And that is Brian Halloran crawling out of the car. In reality, it did happen in broad daylight in Boston, but it was even more dramatic, frankly. It was essentially a drive-by on the waterfront of Boston, and the poor guy driving was a complete innocent who just happened to live down the street from Brian Halloran and was giving him a ride home and got killed.
Yikes.
And so here we see, that's Skarsgård. I'm sorry, Sarsgaard.
Yes.
Stupid Avengers. But
there's a lot of Skarsgårds, but that's a Sarsgaard.
Yeah, so that is basically that is Black Mass, and this is the sordid, violent history of Boston over a 30-year period. Let me just go back, though. Here you can kind of see.
And Jim's book.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, Whitey was known for, balding, and then also see his front tooth, how it's discolored. That is a really interesting kind of thing that there's a couple of photos of Whitey having this kind of stained tooth. It's not quite as ghoulish as it is in the movie, but it's just funny how they worked in literally every little touch, right down to like the pinky ring and the necklace and all that. So I want to give a shout out to, director Scott Cooper, who did Out of the Furnace and Crazy Heart, for really embracing sort of the milieu of the whole thing. But Black Mass hits theaters September 18th, and hopefully it'll get Johnny Depp back on track as
It certainly looks promising based on
actor.
this.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. Black Mass opens September 18th, and for all things movies, keep it here on IGN.